Hi, can you tell us who you are, what you do and what your experiences have been?
Sure, no problem. My name's John Costa. I'm the managing editor of Citizen's Eye, a community news agency. So I'm a freelance editor and I set the project up 14 months ago, specifically for community groups in the city and the county to come together and share all their news and events and training for free. I edit 8 community news agencies based here in the Reference Library, the Learning Information Library on Bishop Street, as part of the Community Media Hub. Now, one of the news agencies that I run is called Inside and Out magazine, which is specifically dealing with ex-offenders that don't reoffend. They've experienced prison, custodial sentence on the inside, and then when they've come out to the outside, hence the name, Inside and Out, INO mag. It's about sharing those experiences with people, trying to get young people that are involved in crime or the youth offending service to turn them away, what life is like on the inside, what awaits them if they carry on down this chosen career path. One of the things I did is been to a charity called Futures Unlocked, and they recruit volunteers that go in and work with offenders on the inside, mentor them and then mentor them through the gate. So when they come out, they meet them on the day they come out, go and help them buy some clothes, sort them out with their accommodation and stuff. And I go along and I speak to those volunteers about using Inside and Out magazine as a resource library for themselves, so experiencing what it's like. We have the support of probation and the various prisons and the police and the youth offending service and Apex that go into prisons and work with young prisoners in the libraries and stuff. So we try and use it as a creative source for people to get their information. And when I speak to these people, they're absolutely fascinated about Inside and Out magazine, how useful it is to them. And we normally do the lecture in 2 parts, so they're actually waiting for an ex-offender to come and talk to them about their experiences. And then when we get to that part, I always say, well, the ex-offender isn't coming to talk to you today because it's me. And they're always quite surprised because I think, again, there's a lot of stereotyping, pigeonholing when it comes to what is an offender or an ex-offender. And then I go on and relay my own experience of having been to prison for 13 weeks. I did a week at Welford Road and 12 weeks at Stockham, which is in Rutland. And I know you guys are specifically talking about early release and overcrowding, so I got a 12-month sentence of which you have to serve half. So I was expecting to serve 6 months, but because I had an accommodation address that I could go back to, when it was researched by probation and the prison themselves, I was released on something called Home Detention Curfew, HDC. So I did 13 weeks, which is 3 months, and then the next 3 months I had a tag on my ankle and I had to be in from 7:15 at night to 7:15 in the morning for those 13 weeks. Basically, not particularly comfortable, quite unobtrusive really. You can put a sock over it and you can go out in public, no one really knows that you've got it on. I found it quite unrestrictive. As a freelance journalist, I probably got quite a lot more work done because for 12 hours I had to be kind of inside the house, so that was okay. When they come to the house, they fit it on your ankle, and then you have to walk to the 4 corners of the house in this every room, so they can set the sort of the meter, if you like, the measuring meter. And then round about 7:10 of an evening, my mobile phone, you could hear it because it had interference, or if I had some headphones on, would go like bidip, 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 where they were obviously dialing into the mobile unit and activating it. And occasionally they rang you and said, are you in? And you'd go, well, I couldn't actually answer the machine if I wasn't here. So it broke 4 times, I think. I had 4 broken ones. I managed to break the ankle bracelet once, and they came out and replaced it. I can see why people would be tempted to try and tinker with it to try and get out, but at the end of the day, it's no point. My particular tag was issued not by probation, it was issued by the prison service, so if you violated that you would have been returned to prison for breaking your licence. Overcrowding, yeah, there's a lot of people there. The normal one is 18 days, 18 days early release, and for that you normally get about 140, 150 pounds, I think, if you release, because what they're saying is that's basically what the prison would have spent to feed and clothe you and put electricity on and stuff for those 18 days, so that's why you get given that as a cheque when you come out. But I wasn't eligible for that simply because I got the whole quarter of my sentence based on that. So.
Just one question. When you was in prison, did you find it overcrowded, or how was the experience for you inside?
Overcrowding is very busy. There's not enough work. Basically, when I was at Stockholm, they were building a brand new workshop unit, and what I found from my experience is that I didn't want to go and work in the panel beating workshop or break up CDs to making light shade reflectors. So I chose to go into education because it gave me an opportunity to keep learning some new computer skills, which I did, and also carry on some of my writing as a journalist. That's exactly what I wanted to do. But of course, you found that a lot of the education classes were disrupted by guys that were coming in who couldn't get into the work that they wanted to do, were therefore kind of made to go to education. You don't really get much choice. Go to education, and of course didn't want to be there. So it then disrupted it for those that have chosen education. So there was a real push when I was there to build this new unit. I think where they were going to be sort of recycling mobile phones and stuff like that. And it's in those times I think that you get the tension. So from that point of view, we did experience overcrowding, and sometimes there weren't enough things for people to do.
Okay, just lastly, I want to ask you, how do you feel about the early release due to overcrowding? How do you personally feel about it? Do you think that people should be let out early because there is overcrowding in prisons?
It's an easy question to ask and an harder question to answer, not because I personally have an opinion about it, but I have an opinion as a journalist and as the editor of Inside and Out magazine. Having now experienced it on the inside and now being on the outside, it allows me to kind of make a judgment about the system, and prison doesn't work. It's as simple as that. I think because you have an industry where a lot of people are employed based on the fact that there's a whole industry trying to go through the system of getting people right up to the prison gates, and then prison is an industry in its own right, especially if you've got private companies running prisons, and then there's a whole industry of people going into prisons to work with prisoners, and then there's a whole industry that work with prisoners when they come out. So there's too many people, and it's a bit like the NHS. It's one of those things that's probably broken, and to actually fix it, you'd actually have to wipe the slate clean and start again. I've seen that education doesn't work in prison. I've seen how the work regime doesn't work in prison. I'm doing a lot of work around sort of prison radio and stuff like that, and I can see how that could help with rehabilitation and stuff like that. But then you've got the mainstream media calling it con air and what a waste of money and all that kind of stuff. So lock them up and they should all be breaking rocks. But a lot of prisons at the moment, they do actually lock you up for sort of 23 hours at a time and stuff. Unless you get into a sort of an open section where I was quite lucky to go to, because they're not, you're not going to cause any trouble, are you? You can come over here, you'll be nice and quiet. But there's access to drugs. There's access to whatever you want, so there's a lot of people that go in there and learn new skills and come out with new skills. There's people that go in there and never really come off of doing drugs, and I've witnessed being called to do a piss test, and you suddenly think, well, why do they keep calling me to do this test when quite clearly I'm not taking drugs? Well, is it based on the fact that if they keep calling me and they know I'm going to keep being negative, then statistically they know there's no drugs in prison when quite clearly there are? So it's an easy question to ask. Personally, at the end of the day, why send someone there if you're going to let them out early? It's one of them, it's the system at the front end needs to be working with the prison system, and then the system afterwards. So.
Thank you very much, John, for
No
your
problem.
time, and that was really great. Cheers.
Hope that's what you wanted.
Thank you.
Okay.